guys, Tug here, Twisted Tug Studios. Good morning, happy Thursday. Gonna make a little video today for you guys to show you some of the big dolls that I've made in the past. And some of these are not up for adoption just because hopefully some of the trade shows like Monsterpalooza are coming up, and I would like to take some of these dolls as models and to show some people some of my work. So it's not all sold, I'll have some inventory. So I'm gonna show you some of those. What's it for me right now is just because I was doing a little segment, I found some just junk laying around, and I wanted to show you guys. So this is, I love junk. This is some junk. This is a 1970s Universal Monsters lunchbox. I don't know, actually I'm afraid to open this in front of you guys because I didn't open it. Oh, thank God, nothing embarrassing. It's a Monster Thermos. This was made in the 70s, and sometimes when you guys see the Universal Studios stuff, this one has Elsa Lanchester and, well, actually the Bride of Frankenstein. They don't want to use the likenesses sometimes. So sometimes Dracula, like for instance, we all know Dracula was Bela Lugosi. This one doesn't really look like Bela Lugosi because sometimes they don't have the rights to his likeness. The family wants to keep that private, or they have to pay extra money, etc., etc. Lon Chaney Jr. was the Wolfman. That's a pretty good likeness of him. Boris Karloff, and you'll see Lon Chaney here on the side is Phantom of the Opera. So if you're wondering how come sometimes Dracula doesn't look like Dracula in the Universals, it's because they don't have the rights to Bela Lugosi. In that same theme, remember these Aurora models in the 70s? Guess when I grew up. This is Frankenstein, and they used to sell these little model kits. And I don't know about you guys, but it always ended up a bunch of pieces on the floor that I didn't know what went where. And they gave you that really like super glue, jelly glue stuff to put this together. They never look like this. I did not put this together. I had this professionally done. And I will pay anybody to put my models together. This is Frankenstein. Kind of funny though. Why would he be coming out of his grave? Didn't Dr. Frankenstein dig Frankenstein up? It says Frankenstein on the grave. That would be the name of the doctor, not the... People always call this guy Frankenstein, including me, but he really wasn't Frankenstein. The doctor was Frankenstein, and he was just the monster. So this is some Universal crap that's here. Back to the dolls. So here's some big dolls that I've made that are going to kind of go on the road with me. We'll pull this. Actually, let's pull this one out first. This one's up for sale right now. This is one of the ones that I am going to... Let's get rid of this lunchbox. This is one of the ones that I'm putting for adoption. These are huge. So here, this gives you an idea. You know, you just can't tell in the photographs how big these mothers are. Here's a coffee cup, and here, so she's about 38 inches. This is Miss Muffet. She's up for adoption right now. Miss Muffet started life as a 38-inch vintage Play Pal doll. They don't make these big dolls anymore, so you have to get the old dolls. They can be pricey. I try to find my bargains, and they can be very brittle sometimes. So whoever's out there with your adopted Play Pal dolls that I did for you, please be careful. Please, don't throw them. Don't throw them against the wall. So this is Little Miss Muffet. Once again, inserted eyes. I'm going to see if I can get the light inside. Inserted eyes, inserted spider, hair, aged clothing. There's, like I said, there's no stone left unturned under her little panties and her little thing. So she saw a spider and it sucked the life right out of her. Little Miss Muffet. Okay. Up for adoption. She can live with you. Here's an example just because it's sitting here again. This is not a big doll. This is one of the Willie Talk sculpts, but it gives you a good idea of how I start to sculpt. This is one that the eyes were just inserted in. So he's looking a little froggish right now, but this is actually going to be Shelley Duvall from The Shining when I'm done with it. So Shelley Duvall actually has eyes like this. We love you, Shelley. So this is how they start, and this is how the process begins. Speaking of Shelley Duvall, I'm looking at it right here. I am lucky enough to own a Carl Yastrzemski Louisville Slugger bat that was one of the bats that Shelley Duvall used in the actual Shining. Shelley Duvall signed this. I don't know if you can see that. See? It says, "Stay away!" And Shelley Duvall batted off Jack Nicholson with a bat like this in the movie, one of the bats they used. Also in that movie, Jack Nicholson's axe that he used was an actual fireman's axe. And Jack Nicholson actually asked Stanley Kubrick, the director, "Can you give me like a dummy axe? Can you give me something a little bit lighter?" And Stanley Kubrick, "No, you can't. You have to actually..." So Jack Nicholson, actually, that was a real axe that he actually chopped down a real door in that movie. When here's Johnny. The door might have been a little thinner than usual, but he really did chop down that door with a real axe. And he had back problems for months, he said, because that was a real axe and it was really heavy. And those scenes were long in The Shining. You couldn't get off that movie. You couldn't get off it. Here is, in 1962, I'm just jumping around a lot here, but so much to say. In 1962, there was a movie called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which was starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Now, in the 50s, as we talked about, the Universal monsters were big. It was the Wolfman, it was Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and the horror movies were monsters. In the 60s, little things changed, and people started realizing, you know what's scarier than monsters? People. People are scarier. So with Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and movies like that, The Bad Seed, we started seeing a lot more movies about a psychological thriller and people that kind of lost their shit. And Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is one of those. This is Joan Crawford and Bette Davis older. I think they were in their 50s or 60s. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford notoriously hated each other. Real story. They didn't like each other. But they got paid some money to do this movie, and they weren't really getting a lot of offers back then, so they both said yes. The story basically is about Baby Jane, who is this little Shirley Temple-like girl who's very famous. But as she gets older, she obviously loses her fame, and Hollywood's not calling anymore, so she kind of just loses it and stays a little girl. So this is Bette Davis. Like I said, these are big. I think she's 38 inches tall. This is Bette Davis as Baby Jane. Victor Hugo's actually in this movie, too, who would later be King Tut in Batman. Inserted blue eyes. I'll never forget the moment when I made this doll and I put the lipstick on. I kind of got chills. I'm like, it's fucking Bette Davis. Bette Davis. There she is. The wig for this doll, actually, I found from the New York City Opera Company. They were having like an auction. They had all their old theatrical supplies, and I paid a lot of money for it, but I'm like, that's Bette Davis's hair from Baby Jane. So this is Bette Davis. We got rats. That's my Bette Davis impression. Bette Davis hated Joan Crawford so much that in one of her interviews she said, my favorite scene in any movie I've ever done was when I threw Joan Crawford down the stairs and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That's funny. This one is, you know this guy? Who is this, huh? Who is it? It's Rob Zombie. No, it's Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, again, very, very large. Albert Einstein, once again, play Paul doll, 38 inches. Face sculpted, glass eyes inserted. I love Albert Einstein. I just think he was smart. I gave him a little E=mc² button, his little lab coat. I really do study these dolls. Each person I do, I study meticulously what they would have on, his little Albert Einstein sweater. And I'll buy 4, 5, 6 pants or 3, 4 sweaters just to find the one that Albert Einstein would have worn. And that's why I'm so proud of some of these. Look, he's going to go on the road with me first, and then once I'm done with these guys, I'll put them up for adoption. Whoops. Yep. Yeah, he's falling over back there. I'll put him up for adoption. I will let you guys know as soon as possible. I'm out of time. Have a great Thursday. Thank you again for keep the questions coming. Keep it coming. Unbelievable, overwhelming response for you guys. Thank you for all the letters and all the messages. By the way, I want to make a few corrections from the last video. Aileen Wuornos. I know, I'm sorry. I kept on saying Eileen Wuornos. Her name's Aileen. I know. Okay, I'm sorry. Aileen Wuornos. I'm really bad with that name. Not a name you hear all the time. And I also said that Dead Silence was Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Mary Shaw made the puppets in Dead Silence. Okay, so I'm man enough to admit when I make a mistake, so there's my corrections, okay? Thank you very much. Enjoy your Thursday, and remember, stay twisted.